Hello and welcome to Living Spark, a project of the Spark of Humanity Network and Orca Media. They're in Montpelier, Vermont. I'm Danielle O'Hallisey. I'm sitting in my studio, which is also sometimes called the second bedroom in my home in Seal Beach, California. And today we're going to talk about some stuff that correlates to, that hopefully supports and explains a little bit about the philosophy of the Spark of Humanity Network. There's much more to be learned at our website, sparkofhumanity.net. But let me start by reading the beginning of the statement of principles that you can find there. We of the Spark of Humanity Network know that we each, every one of us, have what we call a spark of humanity. Through claiming our humanity, we become agents of transformation. And as agents of transformation, all the resources we need are available to us. It's also important to mention that our claiming of our spark of humanity is it's very importantly done through the recognition of others' humanity. And that is perhaps challenging depending on who it is and how we feel about that person when we're addressing that. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, especially the word transformation. But first of all, I leave myself with a homework assignment every time we meet. I talk about something and then I say, this is what I'm going to do for the next 2 weeks. And it's going to be part of my practice. And I hope that my stumbling process of working through these individual exercises, I hope that's valuable to you, because the premise of it is that we're trying to change, we're trying to grow our own, sorry about the coughing, our own spark. And that maybe by watching me go through it, it can ignite something in you. It can maybe, there's a correlation that can be helpful to you. There will be a phone number popping up, and you can call that number and we can talk while I'm on the air. If you're watching this later, then you can, this is October 9th, but if you catch this on YouTube later on, you can leave a comment there, or you can email us. The email address pops up as well. There are a lot of ways to get in touch. I really like hearing from people. And that includes if something I'm saying annoys you, or if something I'm saying doesn't ring true and you would like more clarity, or you'd like to bring your opinion, your experience into this. This is about us. It's not about me. And we, I believe, can grow by expanding the network of people who believe in the humanity of all. Last time we were here, I spoke about a concept called refuge, which is kind of universal in most religions. I don't think we talk about it in a secular environment much. And I kind of think it's worth it. Excuse me, I always have to manage my cat, who is always interested in being here when I'm talking to anyone. But yeah, so the idea of refuge, it kind of comes down to, we have our places that we find comfort, right? We have places that we retreat to when we find the world is challenging, or when we find we need quiet, we need comfort. Yeah, and I've been looking at myself over the past couple of weeks and asking myself, well, where do I go when I need comfort? It's not shouldn't be surprising to anyone that I have comfort foods, and I have television shows that I watch when I'm upset. And there's so much going on in the world that upsets me that I've got certain shows on a loop that I'll watch an episode every day at lunchtime. And when I finish them, I go back and start them again, just because they bring a little sense of calmness, or of I particularly like programs that infuse spiritual existence with our secular existence, which is kind of what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to sell a religion I will occasionally refer to the teachings of certain religions with which I'm familiar, but we're not here to do that, particularly because a lot of people have had bad experiences with religious individuals or organizations, and we don't want to bring that into this discussion. We're saying that every one of us, whether you believe in life after death or reincarnation, or think that we all end up fertilizing the vegetables in the field at best, no matter how you feel about that, and I often say that that's the big question that most religions are really kind of trying to answer. Might be other questions they're answering, but that's a sort of core thing. Whatever you believe in that field, whatever religion you practice or don't practice, whether you are an avowed atheist or an avowed Christian, Buddhist, Islamist, like wherever you are in your thinking of yourself as a spiritual person, we're sort of saying that humanity of ourselves connects with the humanity of others. And I think it's fair for me to paraphrase a little bit and say that that's kind of what we're trying to bring into the world is that is a spiritual practice that is not religious. So refuge, I encounter it frequently. I'm a beginner of a student of Buddhism. I'm not at a place where I can call myself a Buddhist, and I'm never trying to proselytize or try to sell that. I'm kind of more in that space where Buddhism has intersected with the psychology, and looking at that place as my comfort zone, where I can learn, where I can practice, where I can grow. I've really had to look and say, like, where do I take refuge? Like, where do I find peace? Television shows, comfort food, music. I used to gig a lot. I loved that. That was like my peak moments were sitting down with my guitar in a jazz band and being able to do that. I found a sense of safety and purpose that could be called refuge, I suppose. Those aren't the answers that some part of me was looking for when I asked myself those questions. So I began to ask myself other questions, like try to contextualize, because there's a part of me that feels like, well, I'll keep changing and I'll learn to take refuge in more and more lofty ideals, and eventually, I'll reach some very, very profound level of spiritual realization. And while that's nice, it isn't necessarily something I put into practice every day. I was telling someone the story the other day that when I was in the hospital, most people go in for open heart surgery. They're in for like 4 or 5 days. I was in for 7 weeks. There were a bunch of missteps by the medical community. It was in August of 2020. So the pandemic was raging and everyone was exhausted, and there were some difficulties there, and it took a long time for me to get out of there. And when I was waiting for this procedure to happen, for a couple of weeks I was waiting, I have a cousin who's a Benedictine monk and a practicing Freudian psychologist. I mean, the guy's got credentials, and he's always been someone I could turn to. And I remember contacting him and saying, I'm going through this and I kind of need some reassurance. What can you tell me? And his answer, which was incredibly unsatisfying, was, God speaks in the silence. And I was like, there is no silence in me right now. I'm terrified. I'm panic stricken. And being a good consumer, when someone doesn't give me the answer I want, I go somewhere else and look for them to give me the answer, because it's not what answer do I need, it's the one that I want. And I turned to a friend of mine who's a recently deceased, unfortunately, Episcopal deacon who was an out gay man, very strong voice in the quest, the civil rights quest for the LGBT community. And I asked him the same question, like, what can you say to me that can comfort me in this terrifying situation I'm in? I expected a different answer. And his answer was, God speaks in the silence. The point is that I had no silence. And so where was I going to find refuge to hear this, using the language of Christianity, the voice of God, or to use a Buddhist kind of like to hear the expansion of inner calmness, inner compassion. And I didn't find it in those answers because I had no calm or peace inside of myself to which I could retreat, to which I could find refuge. There was a period in my life following that open heart surgery and a very long recovery and a very, very prolonged period of my expecting that I was going to get better, and often that I would just push. I'd take vigorous walks every day, and this is what I got to do. I just got to exercise and my heart will heal itself and I'll be fine. And it took a long time for me to find out that I was probably doing exactly the opposite of what I should have been doing, which would have been to give myself like at least a year of rest. I was recently told by my brother, I have no memory of this because I was a kid when it happened, but when my paternal grandfather passed away, he had gone into the hospital having had a heart attack, and whatever they did for treatment, he came back home after a week or so, and he said, I'm going to beat this thing. And he started marching up and down the stairs, and he dropped dead. My brother told me that story because he said, yeah, you inherited that bad habit. You came by it, quite honestly. It came down to us through our family genes of thinking that the only way to fix something is to deny it and behave vigorously in our denial of that. That was something that I took refuge in. I didn't use those words. I didn't kind of put that together until right now. By the way, I usually plan these discussions several days in advance. I woke up this morning thinking, well, I think I'll go visit so-and-so in the middle of the day, and then realized, oh yeah, I forgot I'm doing this. So I'm speaking a little off the cuff today. I think that happens partly because there's something deep that I want to talk about, that I want to uncover, and I'm sort of avoiding it. I think it also happens because I'm old enough that I'm allowed to be forgetful. Anyway, looking for refuge, looking for where do I find peace. I noticed in telling that story that there is a very begrudging acceptance of the truth, which is that I'm disabled. I have such a pronounced heart condition, and the medications I take for it create new problems. I don't do socializing because it's incredibly difficult for me to get out about the world. And I have people that I can call, that I talk to on a regular basis, and I find comfort there. But during that period of upheaval, of the repetitive denial of the seriousness of my condition, there was no refuge, and I kept losing the things that I didn't realize I was taking refuge in. I didn't realize that having a job, like everybody else, I complained about my work. It was stressful as could be. I ran my own business, and it was tough. And I'm a trans woman, and I started the business, having been early enough in my transition that people sometimes laughed at me when I, asked them if they had any work for me. That I despised working, but when I had to quit, when I wasn't choosing to retire, when it was like, you cannot work anymore, it's gonna kill you. And believe me, it would have. I didn't know how much I would miss it, how much it mattered to me to go into an office. I provided services, documentation stuff around the engineering world. And I would go into their spaces, but kind of, we used to call them water cooler moments. By the time I was there, it was like break room moments, kind of sitting down, having lunch with other people, or walking in and making a pot of coffee and then announcing it and everybody coming in, and, that vibe of people taking a little break from their work. The friendships that you develop that stay within the workplace, but still are meaningful. And given that I was providing services to other businesses, I was often in 3 or 4 different workplaces in the course of a week. And so I had a lot of people like that I liked and could have conversations with. I didn't know how much I valued that until it was not available to me. I didn't know how valuable, when you're forced to retire and can't slowly come in for a landing, when you suddenly can't work, it's very hard to find a meaning to every day. Even if the work you were doing you didn't think was meaningful, it's still very difficult to find that. And something I tell people, because it's really hard to see, is that because I was good at what I did, and because that work came at me fast and furious, I'd be sitting at one desk doing a task and talking to a different client on the phone, answering emails, like all of that. It gave me a sense of competence that is very hard to find when you wake up in the morning and go, what am I going to do today? I have found places of meaning and pursuits to give me a sense of competence, and very strongly educational opportunities. I'm a composer, and I keep learning new ways of looking at the orchestra and musical ensembles, and to keep growing. So it's not like I'm stuck there, but I went through a phase of today has no purpose, it has no meaning, and there is nothing in this day that will give me a sense that I am a competent adult. And that was a very difficult place. I didn't know that those were the things that I found valuable about working, and that I was taking refuge in every day. All right, I've beaten that to death, the refuge topic. There's a lot more to know about it. And if you're fascinated by the idea, I would recommend Googling, say, Buddhism refuge, or Christianity refuge, or secular spiritual refuge, whatever. I think that I'm very much not even a beginner to really understanding it. And the past 2 weeks have been valuable to me because it's caused me to question what I value and where I find a sense of peace. The silence that is barely existent in my world when I'm meditating and have earbuds in so I can't hear the outside world. I mean, it's very small, but yeah, good topic, good couple of weeks. Wish I could convey better what I've learned, and I'll keep working at it and hope to share that. Now, I wanted this week's topic for my next homework to be around change. Transformation is also a way to put it. Being a trans woman, if I say transformation, it seems like it brings up other stuff for people. The thing about change is that we're in a very trying time in this country. And for me to sit here and say you could make change by looking within and challenging your own way of being in the world, or you could make change by bringing a new sense of self-awareness into the world, that could be really glib. That could be really, really wrong. I mean, I could be way off track or really way out of line saying that to people. I facilitate a group of older adults at the local Pride Center, and we had an individual that was coming to the group who would tell us that every week we're all, like, I'm the youngest person there. I'm 66 years old, and I'm the youngest person in the group. And he would tell us, you're all young and healthy. What are you complaining about? Why, if you just thought more positively, your health would be perfect. People come in and have like Parkinson's or the beginnings of dementia. I mean, people have real physical challenges. And he would just, you're young and healthy. What's wrong with you? It was it was a bizarre exaggeration of a common attitude in our culture, which is that if you acknowledge challenge, you are saying that there's nothing you can do about it, or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of people that are like, think positive, I'm going to manifest wonderfulness in my life. And it always sounds a little bit magical thinking to me. You may have a different experience with that. Would love to hear from you if you do, because again, with the cat, would love to hear from you if you do have a different experience, because I am so often wrong about things you have no idea. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a quick story about bringing change into the world. And that is that I transitioned in the late 90s, and the prevailing attitude was that it was mental illness, it was perversion. It was not uncommon for people to tell me that it was satanic. There are still people doing that, but I mean, then it was, nobody said like, oh, okay, yeah, oh, that's cool. What else can you tell me about yourself? If anyone was accepting, it was sort of like they put me in a narrow channel, and that was all they would talk to me about, and then they were done with that topic, and they would push me out to the side. I have a relative, my own sister, who I love profoundly, but during that time, she caused a lot of trouble for me, not just by direct communication to me, but her communication with the rest of the family, and her very conservative form of Christianity, and how I was wrong, she was right, and there was nothing else going to happen. I'll probably talk more about that relationship the next time I see you, but what I can tell you is that rather than fighting, I withdrew. But when I would engage with her, it was always because the thing I can't dismiss about my sister is that she is so profoundly generous with her time and her financial resources. I mean, she's a woman who has given so much back to the world, much more than I've given, I think. So I would call her and I'd talk about that. Like, how's this work that you're doing? Or how's this going? I would encourage her when the family gathered. I would bring those topics up. I would write to her emails, I guess, in those days, and we already had email. And I would write to her and I would ask about these things. We had a head start because we grew up together, and there was something. The word is familial, but there was something familiar, something that we profoundly shared about life from the get-go that allowed that to expand over time. It took decades before she started referring to me by my appropriate pronouns and calling me her sister. Decades. Can we really hope to change things in the world? The way that we think, this political cycle, this political moment, this cultural moment, can we create change in the world? That changed. It doesn't happen on our timeline. And my experience is that it doesn't happen because we sat around and prayed for stuff to change. It doesn't change because I fantasize about it changing, which is what I think that the exaggerated power of positive thinking kind of does. Like, if I just think about a better world, it'll just happen. But there are ways that it can change. And in my experience, they begin by my addressing my own resistance to change inside and talking to another person, talking to their humanity from the position of my own. A lot more to say about that. And a lot of stories about setting limits with my sister and having to really distance myself at times. I don't want to be glib about any of that. It's been a huge challenge for both of us. But I think we're in a different, better place now. I'm going to look for places that I can bring change to myself and bring change to the outside of me. I am out of time. So time to change the channel, I guess. Anyway, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye.